She stood before the locked door her late husband had always forbidden her to touch. A door that had haunted her nights with whispers of secrets he swore would destroy her if she dared to open it. The world had praised him as a man of honor, a provider, a symbol of respect. Yet she knew the truth was heavier than gold, and darker than any shadow. For years she carried the weight of his commands. Silenced by duty, crushed by fear, while her own dignity was buried under his lies. But death freed his voice from her ears, leaving her alone with the key he once hid, as if it were a weapon against her. With trembling hands, she turned it, knowing that behind this barrier was not just wood and stone, but the answer to her suffering, a revelation that would burn the mask of respect he wore before the world. Her marriage had been nothing more than a prison painted with gold, a place where she smiled for others while her soul bled in silence. He had built an empire on her back, exploiting her sacrifice, taking every drop of her strength, and rewarding her only with orders and suspicion. When he died, people came in black clothes, mourning a man they called a saint, never knowing how deep his cruelty had cut. The whispers about his hidden house grew louder in her mind, until she could no longer resist. The key felt heavy in her palm, almost alive, as if his ghost still tried to tighten its grip around her neck. She pushed the door open and stepped inside, the air thick with secrets he had guarded like treasure. She expected dust and emptiness, but what she found instead was the beginning of a truth that would turn her grief into fire. Inside the hidden house, shadows danced on the walls as though mocking her hesitation. Each step revealed more than just abandoned rooms. It uncovered the fragments of a life her husband had lived without her. Drawers filled with documents, ledgers dripping with corruption, photographs of faces she had never seen, yet somehow recognized in the scars of their eyes. He had stolen from widows, crushed the poor, bribed officials, and built his empire not on hard work but on the bones of the voiceless. What shook her to the core were the letters, stacks of them, written by desperate families begging for mercy, their cries unanswered because his greed was endless. She held those papers with trembling hands, her tears no longer for herself, but for the countless lives he had destroyed while society called him noble. Deeper in the house, she found a locked chest. Her heart raced as she forced it open, and inside were deeds, titles, and keys, proof of properties stolen from the weak. Each document was a nail in the coffin of his carefully crafted image, and in that moment, her grief twisted into rage. She was no longer the obedient wife who bowed to his rules. She was the survivor who held the power to rewrite his story. But the house held more than corruption. Behind another door, she discovered rooms where children's drawings still clung to the walls, abandoned toys scattered across the floor. They were not his children, but the children of those whose homes he had seized, lives he had shattered. The realization struck her like thunder. He had hidden their suffering inside his secret walls, not only to silence their voices, but to erase their existence. The silence of the house was broken only by her own breath, heavy with a mix of fear and determination. For years she had been the victim of his control, denied freedom, treated as a shadow in his grand image. But now she stood in the ruins of his deception, with the proof to destroy the name he left behind. Society had once bowed before him, but she knew the same society would bow before the truth she carried. She gathered every paper, every photograph, every symbol of his crimes, and for the first time, she smiled not with joy, but with the sharp edge of vengeance. Her heart no longer trembled with sorrow. It beat with a fire born from injustice, a fire that would consume every lie he left behind. She walked out of that house carrying not just secrets, but power. Power she had been denied all her life. Power that would now become her weapon. The house that once represented his control had turned into her fortress, the place where her silence ended and her voice began to roar. When she left the house, she did not look back. The walls that once imprisoned truth now stood behind her, like broken soldiers, defeated by the strength of one woman. The same people who had worshipped her husband's name would soon know the truth he had buried, and the empire they praised would crumble under the weight of his crimes. She held the documents close, her eyes cold, yet unshaken. For she carried not just revenge, but justice for those whose voices were stolen. In her silence she had been weak, but in her revelation she became unstoppable. The world had thought her a widow chained to sorrow, yet she was the storm that would tear apart the legacy of lies. Her husband's power ended with his death, but hers had only just begun. And in that moment, she knew the door she had opened was not to his secret house, but to her own freedom.